I'm Daniel Bradley, Regional Pitch Advisor for the South East now. Joined the programme in May 2019. We've had a rejig this past year, and it has changed. Well, my region has changed from Greater London, where I was covering football and cricket, to now solely covering football in the South East region, which I'm quite glad of, actually, because it kind of helps you to rein in your focus, and you kind of have to, previously you'd have to play the politics a little bit, switching between your football cap and your cricket cap. But now it's a straight road ahead, and I'm glad to be working with Andrew in Oxfordshire to hopefully get more pitches improved and put on evenings similar to this moving forward. So my background is, I obviously, as I said, joined in May 2019, joined from Wembley. I was working there for 2 years as a groundsman. Before that, I was over in Swansea at the Liberty Stadium. And before that, I was actually working at Magdalen College School in Oxford as a groundsman. So it's helpful to kind of jump into covering Oxfordshire, because I do know the region quite well, even though previously I was based in London. So yes, I mean, I've worked from kind of like elite of sport down to, you know, the school environment, where we do have you know, experience kind of indigenous soils similar to what you're on, and kind of high usage and you know, the general problems that you guys are encountering. So I am, you know, familiar with all aspects of football up and down from the grassroots to the elite, and you know, really kind of you bring focus back to the core of it, and everybody's trying to achieve the same thing. And kind of what you do at Wembley is no different to kind of what you'll be doing on your sites, and what I was doing when I was working in Oxford at the school. So yeah, joined the GMA in May 2019. We've changed from what was the aptly named Grounds and Natural Turf Improvement Programme, known as GANTIP, to the more kind of rolls off the tongue Pitch Advisory Service now. Better name, it's not as confusing as before. So what is the Pitch Advisory Service? So began in its first iteration in 2014, called GANTIP. Then we had all of the national governing bodies of sport on board. Phase 2, which ran from 2017 to 2021, just included the FA and ECB, but now kind of we've rolled back in with Sport England, and we are covering cricket, football, rugby league and rugby union, and there's a plan to incorporate other sports into it as we progress as well. And it's a case of, you know, it's been highlighted throughout many years, kind of the difference and the difficulty supporting grassroots sports and kind of creating fit for purpose playing surfaces. So what does my role as regional pitch advisor involve? So I mean, primarily it's helping and supporting yourselves, grassroots football clubs, and you know, off the back of that, facilitating the investment the Football Foundation and Sport England have ring-fenced to put into sport. Now, there's been leaps and bounds with that investment recently in terms of having money made available for maintenance practices. Previously, it was just a case of, well, we need our pitch, you know, decompacted, or we need kind of our pitch overseeded, and it's the case of what was previously, well, yeah, okay, we can help you to buy an overseeder, or we can help you to buy kind of a, you know, a decompaction machine, where actually now, you know, throughout the programme's history, we've kind of highlighted the need that many clubs, you know, similar to yourselves, and I know there's quite a few of you that have kind of received different types of foundation funding. Just need a bit of a kickstarter and you know, a little bit of a help along the way in terms of some guidance and recommendations to move forward and bring the pitches, you know, from where they were to a suitable level to sustain community and grassroots sport. As well as that, it ties into education as well. So that's where these kind of evenings that we're putting on, joined by, you know, James and Phil, we hope you'll take away some, you know, bits of information that you'll be able to kind of put into practice on your own grounds, and just think, you know, it's quite a holistic approach. You know, yes, there's funding needed to improve sports pitches at this level, but there's also kind of, you know, a lot that can be done to, you know, assist the people that maintain them in terms of building knowledge and passing on expertise. So, yep, you'll have all hopefully had a PitchPower report, if not done by myself, by my predecessor, Darren. So that's what the role involves a lot of now, supporting grassroots clubs with advice and recommendations, support and guidance. This includes information around renovations, general maintenance, machinery recommendations, and kind of what you should be looking towards for training. So what support is available? As I said, Andrew filled me in on who was on the call and kind of how you're known to Oxfordshire, and it's brilliant to see that, you know, many of you have kind of enrolled in some of these funding packages that are available from the Football Foundation, or been recipients of the Pitch Prep Fund, which was launched in 2020 to kind of assist clubs get their pitches back in shape following COVID. So, as I said previously, I think it was kind of for the first, since 2014 up until 2019, I believe, funding was only available for capital purchases, the small grant scheme from the Football Foundation, but that's changed more recently, and the grass pitch improvement strategy with a 10-year enhanced maintenance plan to improve your pitches. You'll be familiar with it, I hope, in comms from Oxfordshire, in that funding is available up to £2,500 for your 11v11 pitch for the first 2 years, and then that tapers down in years 3 and 4, and in years 5 and 6 to 33%. And then there's 4 years thereafter. We hope that the pitches and the knowledge of the people maintaining them will be able to do so sustainably, in that they will meet the good level. The idea of funding the 2 years up front was to kind of give the pitches the kickstart that they needed, because we know, like, a lot of them drop off, and it often just needs that initial push to get them back up to where they need to be before you find a model to sustain them at the good level. During that time, it's, you know, with Andrew, myself, and the Football Foundation, Phil as well, with his services that he provides to Oxfordshire, on hand to kind of give you guidance and best practice. And we hope that moving forward, you'll be in a position to kind of sustain them at that good level, find what usage that they can cope with, and also potentially bring more maintenance practices in-house, so you aren't, you know, often kind of so reliant on a local authority to cut your, or council to cut your pitches. The funding obviously does, as I said, we introduced PitchPower, which is the self-assessment app that the clubs are now able to use. This was brought into place really because previously there were 7 RPAs covering the country, and you know, we had limited time and resource ourselves, and we weren't able to facilitate the kind of investment that the Football Foundation wanted to put out. So PitchPower is available, and the money that is available to clubs has significantly grown. Just any questions come through on the chat, Andrew, or were you all good to motor on?
No, nothing yet.
Okay, all good. So Grass pitch maintenance fund considerations. If you are thinking of entering the enhanced maintenance work to raise or sustain the pitch, you do have to be mindful that there are some things that we ask of the club, and that is a minimum of 2 PitchPower assessments annually. And we've now just crossed over into the mandatory window. So if you are enrolled on that funding, you'll be aware that from November to March is a time frame where you must submit a PitchPower submission. This is really because, you know, you could send an assessment through in June when you've just had your reno, you know, the sun's out, the pitches are lovely and striped up, they haven't been used. We really want to get into the kind of nitty gritty into how the pitches are performing when they're being tested, and that is kind of from this period now. That's why we wanted to put this evening on, to kind of bring you some support and hopefully some best practice in that you can take away and use when, you know, it is a challenging time for all groundsmen up and down the country at this time. Quite good at the moment because we've had reasonable temperatures, not so much rainfall in this part of the country. Really, it's been bearable, but we all know from previous experience, once the leaves start dropping and the temperatures dropping as well, you know, the kind of desire to use the pitches from the club doesn't decrease either. So, you know, it's the wear on them does increase. Like I said before, kind of with the funding, years 1 and 2, you get 100% up front. Years 3 and 4, you get 66%. So that's where you do need to kind of be considerate of your grounds practices and prioritise what's important, what's going to give the best bang for the buck. You know, sometimes I get assessments through and it's a case of, you know, even if you had 4 times as much granted in years 1 and 2, you know, your usage level would never kind of add up to that's needed to sustain the pitch at that level. It is a compromise. Everything is a compromise, and it's kind of building that knowledge as well as kind of backing it up with funding to find your, you know, your level where you can sustain the pitches that good. Any questions on that one before we move on?
Just in terms of that work, Dan, obviously they've said, haven't they, in sort of PitchPower 2.0, as it were, they are going to focus on prioritising recommendations, aren't they, in terms of
yeah, absolutely. And we'll touch on that later in the session in terms of the information that you provide in your PitchPower assessment. That is as important as completing, you know, if not more so than completing the assessment. It's not a tick box exercise. It's a case of submitting where your pitches are at the moment, you know, in terms of your grass cover, how are they draining, as well as kind of what machinery have you got, what condition is it in, what are you know, what maintenance practices are you carrying out. The report that you receive and the guidance that you receive will only be as good as what you put into it. So that's really important to kind of identify with that. And yes, you're right, Andrew, in terms of often it is a case of, you know, making the best judgment call on, you know, what's important, what's going to kind of serve us best in terms of a priority list. This is going to be, you know, this practice is essential to improve your kind of drainage capacity of the pitches, as well as your grass covers low. You know, I mean, and towards the bottom, you can kind of have the, well, if there's any money left over, this would be a good thing to look at. So yeah, you're absolutely right on that. I hope all of you will be aware of and signed up to the Hive, the Football Foundation groundskeeping community. There's been a really big push to develop this. We're now at 2,700 plus users on it. I know, James, you're I've seen quite a few posts from you on there. We can touch on it when it's when we talk about Gore and Robbins, but it really is a worthwhile community to sign up to. And if you do have kind of, 10, 15 minutes, half an hour a week, just to scroll down and see what's being posted, you're not alone out there in terms of the difficulties that you'll face or the questions that you'll want to ask. And really, this is a prime place for you to log into and kind of, post the good, the bad and the ugly, really. We want to see, the regional pitch advisor are all active on it. So even if you post something, a question, and it's not myself that answers, somebody else will get back to you or point you in the right direction. There's a whole heap of, they've been called cards, so pages that you can visit with, a huge amount of information on there, in terms of, even kind of pre-season, what dimensions should your, mark your pitches out at, some tricks and tips on kind of, marking out them from scratch, as well as goal mouth repair cards, pest and disease cards, if you think something looks a little bit untoward on your pitch, to kind of have a look or post a question. There's been a whole heap of posts recently about kind of all of the annual meadowgrass and the POA that started to be kicked out of the pitches. You might have seen it on your own pitches, in terms of, we've had kind of a year where back end of last year, perhaps the clubs didn't renovate to get it out. The pitches weren't used as much. We've had quite a kind of mild, wet summer, so all of the annual meadowgrass now that the clubs have taken through on their pitches, we're starting to see it all kicked out, and there's been quite a few photos recently of that all coming out and clubs asking the question. So it really is open to how you want to use it. Working with Andrew, moving forward in the future, they want to develop it further, and we're looking to open up a regional group where, there might be a question that you don't want to post to, so many people. You can post it in the Oxfordshire group, but that's a little bit way off at the moment. But it's something that we're working towards, and I would urge you to sign up, and even just send even if you sign up tonight, send a hello. I'm such and such from whichever club. Pleased to be joining the community. It's a really good thing to have on there. As well as that, we've got the GMA's toolkit that we've developed. The Hive is basically a football community. We interact with it, but it's kind of the Football Foundation's baby, if you want. The GMA, we've developed a toolkit which is going to be kind of like a cross-sport page. So if you kind of maintain cricket, the ECB have been working recently on a lot of information being put onto this in terms of, health and safety guidance. There's rugby league guidance on there, and rugby union as well. There is football stuff on there as well. There's a whole wealth of information that's, so it's good to kind of use both of these tools to the best of your ability. They're there to help you. I'd urge you to kind of check both of those out. So on the back of the support, the funding that's available, we'd like to bring James Forder from Gore and Robbins back in. Evening,
sorry,
James.
Dan, sorry, just before we jump in on that, just a couple of comments on the Hive. Easington, really positive, put scaffold netting instead of grow sheets off the back of some comments on there. Doubled up scaffold netting worked as well as grow sheets at the price. Yeah. James about taking turf from other parts to cover bad rabbit holes. This is an idea on there. I was asking for an option. There's just back onto in terms of the PitchPower reports. Obviously, Bambi have raised the chafer grub issue, but kind of what impact will that have on their improvement condition submissions, and sort of how will it impact their progress? Is it a case of sort of there's an allowances given for unforeseen circumstances?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a case of you know, there's no way he could be penalised for that. And actually, if it was, you know, I mean, I say, you know, fortunately we know what it is, but it's a case where, you know, you can't assess every pitch through a computer, and I know Phil has been out to that site and inspected it. There is a need to kind of sometimes leave the computer and go out to assist the site in that way. It's just a case of we're not able to do to get out and visit every site because there is only a small team of us. So that's why the kind of, you know, PitchPower comes into play. But yeah, by all means, I mean, if you do have any, you know, concerns about anything untoward on your pitch, or areas that are kind of, you know, behaving differently, or the grass isn't growing, or grass is, you know, overly grown in some circumstances, by all means, you know, my email, Andrew will be able to pass over to you, post it up on the Hive. You know, last resort, you'll submit it as a kind of an image in your PitchPower inspection, but obviously, you know, we want to kind of get out and help you before that. But yeah, there's no way you'll be knocked back on kind of you know, the rating, or kind of nothing untoward will happen from submitting you know, when you've had difficulties with the pitch.
I think the other thing to add is that although we've very much embraced the digital side of support, really as a way of trying to have as much impact as we can, there are some opportunities, and something that we'll obviously work with our support pitch advisor and you as well, Dan, isn't that, to, if it warrants it, sort of have a face-to-face visit. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the scaffolding netting that's been raised is a brilliant one, because yeah, if you know, most likely, you know, you'd hope that there might be somebody within the club that knows a scaffolder that says kind of like, oh, you know, would you mind and you can get it, you can pick it up for free. I mean, you know, it's yeah, it's these little wins that you can take that kind of go a long way, rather than looking at the budget that you've got, somebody recommending you to get germination sheeted and you going to buy it and it kind of eats into that. It's just being that resourceful, and there's, you know, hopefully evenings like this and the information that's out there on the Hive, you know, can help, and that's our aim, to support. Yeah, I've been told by Mr. Simons, our previous RPA, that there seems to be a thing in Oxfordshire, he's former Oxford University groundsman, that there's something strange about the groundsmen in Oxfordshire, that they don't talk to each other and don't want to work together. So I'm very keen to sort of prove that wrong. Yeah, and as much as we can do to build up this community, then we're going to do it.
No, good stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple more comments about sort of the Hive and things, and obviously thanks, David, for your feedback about the support from ourselves and Darren and Phil, and the importance of feeding that back to the foundation. And that's a point that sort of keen to make. But yeah, so hand over to James then now.
Hi there. Just a brief sort of overview of where I started. My son started training with Gordon Robbins at under 5s in 2012, and then I helped like running sort of the training sessions, and then I took over. We split into 2 teams in 2014 where my son was just started under 7s. Then from then I started doing line painting because we had someone doing it and they retired. That was in 2016. We had 5 pitches at the time, and I think about 17 or 18 teams. Then I've done a club mentoring program through the Oxfordshire FA, which I found really beneficial to my coaching side. And then I went and helped some of the teams in the club and some of the managers. I still help some of them now. So it's an ongoing thing. 2017, we were doing winter training in sports hall, and I realised that we were outgrowing the sports hall and we needed to go outside, and then realised there wasn't nowhere in the local area for us to go and train. So I looked onto Oxfordshire and looked for floodlights, and that's where I met Andy Earnshaw, and we sort of spoke about floodlights. He said about there's a talk of a 3G pitch in our area, things like that, and I think he reeled me in, because ever since that I ain't stopped. So since then, like, there's pavilion improvements we're looking at, 3G pitch. Going forward, there's 2017. I took over as facility coordinator. Ended up getting wheeled goals as well for like all of our pitches, which has come a lot of funding from Football Foundation, obviously. We've now got 9 pitches with wheeled goals, which is excellent. And 2019, 2020, started talking about pitches. Back then, when I first started, we only had 16 to 18 teams. Now, to present day, we've got 28 teams. When we started talking about pitch improvements or looking at the pitches, what can we do? I think we had 20 teams, and our forecast was 22, 23 teams for the following year. And they just, like, as you can see in the pictures, they're sort of getting really worn, with all the footwear over them. And it just, we were having, like, the adults were playing and they were sort of commenting how bad they were getting. We had to stop. We were stopping games being played. So over Christmas period and January, some teams didn't play at all, which wasn't good. And then we spoke to Andrew again, and he put us with the Football Foundation, started doing the PitchPower and getting to some funding towards the pitches. And since obviously lockdown happened, so that put it back a year. And then so this year, literally, I've just been doing obviously all the PitchPower stuff, speaking with Parish Council to get service level agreements, to actually getting the funding, getting an agreement with Parish Council, meeting Phil, who's on there, Phil Garrod, excellent. The advice from him is like, wow, I don't know, it's been brilliant. Some of it never knew. He's sort of put me in the right way to go going forward. He's coming in when we got the funding. He's come and done overseed inverter drain, fertilizer, like, which was the first bit of work, the actual recreation game that has been done, but to our knowledge. Before Phil come in, all I basically was doing with the pitches was fixing the goal mouse, like overseeding sort of just like goal mouse itself, not much else. So didn't really have much time. But since I've been doing this PitchPower thing, I've done the course, level 1, and it's just like blowing my mind of what you can actually do.
Was that previously the maintenance routine? Could you give it with these pictures that we could see in the background now?
So basically, all I've done was mark the pitches. The council cut the pitches. The council were supposed to be like aerating, and I think fertilizer. That was in a contractor that I saw, and they were obviously wasn't doing that. So I've been with the club nearly 10 years now, and from people that I've spoken to, they've known nothing ever get done with like Sheepcote where we are on our site. So it's just literally, and the grass cutter would cut the grass the same length as like the cricket pitch, which was like 15 mil. That's still an ongoing conversation with him, but the last couple of times, like Phil said, it shouldn't be cut because of the fertilizer and the work's been done. So we've spoken to them that they haven't cut it since the seed's gone in. So it's looking a lot better now, and hopefully we're getting our tractor through the Football Foundation grant at the end of the month. So I'll be able to take over cutting the pitches. In the slide here, this is like one of the bad goal mouths we had. So this is the 11v11 goal mouth, and the first picture is like where it's totally bare. It was sunken down by about a foot. So I was just like filling it up with soil, and I overseeded, as you can see. And that at the time I didn't know about growth sheets or anything like that. I just literally put the gulls over them, and I realised like the nets of the gulls obviously had dew on them, so it helped and shaded the grass a bit. So as you can see, I think that was like 6 weeks in total from start to finish. And it was all information I got from the course, and like on the Hive website, just one of the sheets. I was like, so I just had a go, and it actually looks quite good now. It's nearly level. I didn't put it up enough, so I should have raised it a bit more, but it's really good. Just looking at it. And then obviously bottom left picture is where Phil come in and aerated the grass and all the pitches. That was late August, so we got our funding quite late. But yeah, so that's pretty good.
So this was all this summer, the work?
That was yes. So the first picture was, I think, May. So when we finished at the end of season. Yeah. And then the second picture was probably June or July, and then the top right picture was the start of August. So it's about six weeks in total. Okay. And I actually went down with my own mower and cut the gull mouth because I just left it. Yeah. And I just and it just looks totally different. So where you had ladies and men playing on the pitch, like the ladies, the goalkeeper wasn't that tall, and now I've just made a foot taller because it literally went down a foot. I think about 3 ton of soil went in there. Yeah. So, and I've done a goal mouth the opposite end about 2 seasons before that. I've done exactly the same, but I never done it that quick. It was done over 2 seasons, just generally playing about with it, and I didn't really know what I was doing until I'd done the level 1 course, which was brilliant. And yeah, so I'm getting better. So I've got the main grass at home. Yeah, so from that
forward is we'll do. So when was this? This was winter
2018.
Okay.
So that's as far back as we go with pictures.
Yeah. And then these are the ones that we picked up the other day.
Yes. So this is after Phil's renovated. So he come in and done a herbicide treatment the week before this, and then he scarified and picked up all the debris and done a fertilizer as well treatment. And as you can see from like the 2 slides previous, it's totally different. It's amazing, and the amount of comments we've had from like the adults and like the parents, players, is unreal. Just from the decompaction, like the older players, the men, that they've noticed the difference in like how they play and how tired they get after, like before and after the game. Before it should be very heavy, drudgy, and like really hurt their knees. Now, just because Phil's done that aeration, it's a lot softer, and you can actually feel it like a bit of a bounce underneath your foot. Yeah, but yeah, it's totally changed it. So it's really good, the comments we're having. So we can already see a difference, and we're only what 3-4 months into the 3 months into the renovations. Yeah. So God knows what it's going to be like next year or the year after.
Yeah. And what's your program for moving forward now into kind of spring next year? What are you obviously, you're not going to go back to previously just cutting a market, but what have you taken away from Phil's comments, from your PitchPower report, and from your online level 1? What are you going to be looking to do to perform over the winter, so you don't end up with a goal mouth sunken by a foot again when it comes back around?
Yeah. So just try and literally keep on top of it. But obviously with getting the tractor, that'll be another learning point. So every day is a learning day. And then like Phil's already discussed with me how I should do things. So instead of like stripe the pitches, band it so you get like longer turning circles so you're not damaging the edge of the pitches. And then so yeah, just try and slit the pitches, open them up, get some air into them, and just try and keep them a bit neater. And also with coming sort of say February, March time, when the grass does start growing, we'll be cutting our own pitches. So we're going to So at the minute, I think I've just done my PitchPower assessment on Saturday, and I think they're roughly about 25 mil height in grass. So they haven't been cut for, I think, 5 weeks now. So hopefully we might get a little bit more growth, and then over the winter, obviously we'll just be using the tractor just to help it out. But yeah, come like February, March, start using our own mower to cut it. So it'll hopefully about 30 mil, and then that'll give it a better coverage again. So going into next like lot of funding, we will hopefully be able to like thicken up the grass. I think that's what Phil said. Going forward. So yeah, so basically like I'm back at square one because it's all new to me now. So it's going to be.
Phil, do you want to come in on this and talk about any of the works that you've done there?
Oh, yeah, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. No. Like so, with James, what the biggest problem I had there, as you could probably see, is like weed infested, but not much density. And to be honest with you, I do go around and sort of see guys and try and encourage that your best friend is density of grass. If you can grow grass, it gives you such a better chance to get through the winter, it deals with saturation better purely because you're able to pull moisture out of the soil. If you've got a plant there, it transpires and it will pull the moisture out. When it's just bare, it's so open to waterlogging, and that's when you start losing games. So Goring, to be honest with you, when I got there was probably when I first had a look at it. I have to say that it's probably 2-3 years away. I'd probably say between year 2 and year 3 we could get it really good. But like the weeds haven't been done for I don't know how long. It was probably the hardest pitch I've aerated in quite a long time. Just all those sort of like very simple things, and already they've made a difference already. That, you know, we've had to do something early quite drastic to try and improve it in a fairly quick amount of time, but there's a lot of seed in that ground. I still think there's some more to come. We've fertilised it a couple of times to really try and get the density up. And I'm hoping that it overwinters quite well. And with the equipment that they've got coming in, to be honest with you, a slitter is a bit of a goldmine because it doesn't necessarily get the depth of aeration, but surface area is actually better than a solid tine, because as the slit goes in, it's sort of like doing that half moon, and that aerates a lot of the area. So that slitting regularly just with that machine will do make a big difference to Goring. But obviously, like a lot of other things I've said, is like we've done a lot of good work, but it's also when you don't do stuff. Yeah. You know, like the thing to sort of like the temptation for James, I know, will be to jump on that tractor. And I think one of the first things I said, like, if you're not sure, don't do it.
Yeah.
And that's because I see so many times people go out there in the wrong conditions and try and do something, and sometimes it's best left. So yeah, all told, I'm happy where we got it in the period of time, but there's a lot more left to do.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And you know, it's a fantastic, you know, case study, if you want, in terms of, you know, going from something like this, and this is just one of hopefully many stories, you know, we'll be able to tell in the county in years to come, in terms of, you know, yes, you got the funding, but you've got the kind of advice and the support to kind of really implement it. And as we said, kind of the next step is getting your tractor and being able to cut the pitch yourself, because at the moment, you know, that's the difficulty in terms of you are at the mercy of it being cut at 25 mil, you know, in single digit temperatures, and really you want to kind of keep it at the moment as long as possible. But yeah, I mean, we touched on it earlier. It's not a quick fix solution, and as Phil alluded to, you know, 3-4 years down the line, if you're getting compliments now, it's going to be fantastic. It's just these things don't happen overnight, and they do take persistence, and they do take dedication, and they do take kind of, yes, funding, but it does take somebody to kind of build their own knowledge up and kind of move forward with the support that's available. And I think, James, you've been an absolute, shining light in terms of using the resources that are there and kind of pushing forward with your own vision to get to the position where you are now. And long may that, continue, and long may we kind of support you within the CFA structure and externally to push that forward. And I hope, the people on the call kind of can, see this case study and,
yeah, what
it is. Andrew, is there anything there on the chat to raise before we move on quickly to PitchPower?
No, we're all fine. I seem to have fireworks in Whitney, so apologies if that's coming through.
Nothing at the moment, but yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that both. And yeah, I'll just touch on PitchPower and kind of like the advancements is that we've implemented to kind of spread the net wider, as it were, and kind of reach out to more clubs. So I think everybody on this call, you don't need me to tell you what it is, because I think a lot of you have used it, and you'll have seen maybe recently that it's been launched to a wider community. It's now kind of the Football Foundation put comms out about it, and they push it wider, because really, just over 12 months ago it launched. We've now done towards 6,000 reports. Just to put that into perspective, the previous phase of GANTIP, there were just over 5,000 reports produced, I think, over 3 years. So we, in year one, we've been able to offer that assistance to so many more clubs, and it's only going to grow as well. And the thing to state really is, this is a tool for you to use. It's not a tick box exercise. James, with the support of the PitchPower reports that he's received, as well as the support from Phil, we want to support you along this journey, and the more you kind of get to grips with PitchPower and understand it, and the more kind of you become friends with it, because I know it can be kind of like, if you're not overly technologically literate, it could be a bit of a kind of daunting task or a tedious task, but actually this is fundamental for you improving pitches moving forward. Not only that, and it's a tool for yourselves to record. The only the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And as I say, it's not been perfect. We're aware of that. This was something that had been developed. It had been planned for a number of years and been developed kind of and put out there 13, 12 months ago. There's so many clubs that have used it now. Like I say, around 6,000 reports have been produced. It hasn't been without its hurdles, but we are ironing them out in terms of the Football Foundation and Sport England are that pleased with it that they want to make it multi-sport. So PitchPower 2.0 will kind of build from what we've learned in the first iteration of it. It's due to launch kind of end of quarter one at beginning of quarter two next year, and it's going to be multi-sport. So we're going to have the regional pitch advisors who work in rugby and also cricket using it as well to get out to more and more clubs. So these you'll have done these, but this is just a couple of good pointers on kind of why it's important to take good photographs. James and Phil touched on it with everything that's been going into Goring Robbins, the pitch is still being cut quite short, and really as we enter this phase, I mean, it was the same when I was working in Stadia. The referee had asked how long the grass is, and we'd tell him something different, because we just wanted to keep it as long as possible, because it really does promote recovery, and the longer you can leave it within reason, as Phil kind of touched on there, ground cover is key in the winter, because it does kind of it does you no end of favours. So this is why we asked you to take photos of the grass. Not only that, we want to be able to see kind of what the cut is like on the grass as well. You know, if you're using a rotary mower that's kind of a little bit blunt and it's bruising the leaf, if we can see that the grass has been cut in conditions such as this, when you've got a heavy dew on it, you know, these are little things that we look for. It's not just a case of, oh, you know, how long's the grass? Why do we need to know that? It's kind of like a holistic approach to producing this report. This is what we're looking at. Moving forward, how do we, you know, why do we want to look at the surface profile? I think this one speaks for itself, and actually, like, you know, this isn't the greatest example of covering, because actually I'll be putting not far off 100% of weed cover within this. You have got grass in there, but it's not ideal, and come this time this would probably be a much worse photo than it is now in terms of the green that you see. But this one speaks for itself really, and it's important that when you do take photos such as this, that they are kind of universal, so we can measure the improvements and we can kind of work out whether the you know, the guidance that we've provided you in terms of overseeding and using, you know, products to kind of increase grass cover as well as your aeration, you know, if that is having a positive benefit on your ground cover and your desirable grass plant species. You'll notice bottom, there's no trainers in this one, so we can assess it. So be really mindful of that. Take it waist height, but yeah, don't be sending me photos of the football boots or your work boots on it, which, you know, you sometimes get. But like I say, kind of what you put into it, you know, and the quality that you put into it, we give back out. Similar to this, you know, this is a brilliant example of a core that's been extracted. The person's gone to the trouble to kind of put it on a white background, so we can really see, you know, not so much you know, your root depth, but you can see on the bottom where it is. I think a lot of people in Oxfordshire would give anything for a soil as friable as this. It looks like lovely stuff. You know, as well as that, you know, you can use this to measure grass height, but it is better to take a photo like that. Next photo, if you have got a corer, even better. These are able, you can get these if you have got a lot of pictures, and it's kind of like an arduous task to take out a core in your free locations. Funding is available for a corer. They do serve a good purpose in terms of, you know, there's not as much disturbance, if you want, to the pitch. This will pop back in and you won't really, you know, notice it at all. It's a case of, but this is a smaller area and it is quicker to do so. But in terms of these photos that have been submitted, well, I mean, if you're going to pick apart, you know, the tape measure is not very clear, but you can still see there's about 130 mil of profile there. Your roots are probably at that depth, and there's very little thatch in that, you know, at all. Same as this one, apart from you can very clearly see you've got a thatch layer at the top, which is retaining your moisture, bone dry beneath that. So this is, you know, this is just an example of why we ask these things and what we look for. Similar with line marking, you've got the pictures that are sent there. It's difficult to pass a judgment between, you know, these three photos that have been submitted. So a nice kind of perspective on your line marking photo to see what conditions are, you know, your lines are they bright, but also, you know, is it consistently marked along the pitch? Is it wavy? This is your opportunity to almost show your pitches off in this picture. It's actually really useful for us. These are all from different pictures, by the way. I mean, you know, it's just I kind of just picked the best of the bunch to highlight it. And you know, we ask for equipment, you know, your equipment details as well. And I kind of wanted to put these slides in because, yes, you know, we've got your photos, but even, you know, this person's gone to the trouble to kind of list his usage hours so he could look back on next assessment and say, well, actually, you know, I was at 560 last time, we're at this, it's had this amount of usage. You know, he's put down what he's cutting out in there. spring, summer, autumn, winter. You know, like I said, it is a tool for you to use and for you to kind of use however you want to monitor your pitch performance and what you're doing, as well as, you know, the maintenance operations. I like to sit down, I think, and make a cup of tea and go through this stuff, because it's like reading a book. But I was blown away by kind of how this person took to it, and the information that was inputted allowed me to kind of, you know, see what's being done, see what the condition the pitches are in, and kind of you get a whole lot more out of an assessment like this which is submitted, in terms of me going through the information, correlating it all to kind of like what condition the pitch is in, and kind of saying, well, actually, you might have missed this, or that's brilliant, you're investing in this X amount of times of year, but potentially you could kind of better spend your money here. It's just all really good information. As I said, what I'll do is convert this presentation to a PDF and get it out to you afterwards, so you've got all the information there and you can read through the examples yourself, and it's just really good information. This is critical as well, the additional info, you kind of your usage and maintenance. We really need to know, you know, there's no point in advising kind of, you know, something like this, and kind of if you're hammering your pitch at an unsustainable level, you know, they do have limitations. So to know how many hours you're using the pitch for training, as well as match hours per week, as well as any other sports or weekends cancelled on the pitch, but due to poor weather and, you know, water retention, you know, it really is important to have this information as well. And you ask why. Everything that gets inputted kind of goes through an algorithm, and there's criteria that have been developed, you know, obviously to score your pitch as basic, good, advanced or high. We don't want to see any poor or unclassified, because it says it's, you know, it fails to meet the minimum standards of the GMA's pitch grading framework. So performance quality standards tested has been around for a long time, but to kind of, that just tests the pitch. You know, these are just numbers that you're inputting. The GMA have been working on this for a number of years to kind of link, actually, well, we've moved the pitch through the advice and the guidance provided from a basic to a good pitch, but what does that look like in terms of what skills and knowledge are you going to need? James, I mean, you're almost a shining light of this, being on the call, in terms of, you know, understanding where your pitch was, you know, receiving the funding, and as well as kind of going on the GMA level 1 to move the pitch up from what was a basic pitch to a good pitch. And, you know, as Phil alluded to, you know, the next step really is moving that pitch up to an advanced pitch. And with that, you know, we've got the online courses we've, you know, developed to kind of give you that knowledge to better understand how to do that. Yeah, I mean, it's not been launched yet. It's been in the planning stages for quite some time, but it will all tie together in terms of, it's not just getting the pitch to an advanced level, it's getting your knowledge and you know, skill set up to that level as well. And this is an example of the obviously, James, you've done your level 1 course. Yeah, we go up to level 3 online at the moment now. And it really is worth, you know, again, using all the tools that are at your disposal. So the Hive group, the GMA toolkit, these webinars, as well as the online courses that we offer. And really, if you show a willing and kind of, you know, I mean, it's the proof is in the pudding, as they say. And I think, James, you've had struggles, you know, convincing the parish council that it was a good idea, and kind of you've hit hurdles along the way. But yeah, you know, if you show you're willing and kind of you step forward with this vision, you know, potentially moving forward, these courses, you know, won't be coming out of your own pocket, in terms of you go to the club and say, look, I've taken us here, I've got a plan to take us to the next level. You know, it's brilliant that we're getting funding for the pitches, but actually, like, I would like to improve myself as well, so I can sustain the pitches at the level that we're kind of promoting. Yeah,
the club are quite good with that, so that they help promote everyone, and within the club anyway, so that's
Yeah.
quite good. Yeah.
No, I'm pleased to hear that. Andrew, any questions in the chat before we move on to kind of the final section, which will bring Phil and James into this, in terms of like what we've got to be doing and what we've got to be looking at over the, you know, the dark, cold, wet winter nights in terms of keeping the pitches in a good condition.
Yeah, we've had a couple of comments about the impact of PitchPower on battery life, which may be something to feed back.
Okay.
And then a very specific question from Easington, just around being able to sort of keep the reports.
Yeah.
So it should be, when you open it, there's a bar that should run along the bottom, and in the bottom there's a little box saying print report. If you press that, then it gives you the option to save it as a PDF, so you can save them.
Yeah.
I've got them all saved. If anyone's struggling, just drop me a line and I'll fire them across. One of the things that is really important, is that we've alluded to already, haven't we, in terms of PitchPower 2, it's a very sort of, it's an ongoing process. It was developed with a company called Torchbox, who are based a few miles up the road from here in Whitney, which is great because I think we did some of the piloting. But it's constantly moving, it's constantly evolving. I was at an FA training day yesterday with a GMA and Leicester Sports Turf Academy. Well, that was one of the discussions about how we can continue to improve it. There's the GMA constantly looking at it, aren't you, reviewing it? There's a meeting with the FA and really bringing some county FAs in on that as well. So having these groups, having these discussions, getting your feedback is really valuable, and please be assured that we are feeding that back in, and everything's going in to sort of make the most of it, because we're all after the same thing, in terms of improving the grass pitches. It's a win for everybody. So if we can make the system as effective as possible, then it benefits all of us, and the bottom line is it gives you fantastic pitches, which is what this whole thing's all about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you ever get stuck with the, you know, trying to track, we've had it previously, Andrew, as well, when reports will be sent out, and because they contain so many links, they end up in spam and trash mailboxes. So yeah, if you ever you know, need your report chasing, feel free to chase Andrew. Yeah, definitely. No, you're absolutely right in terms of PitchPower 2.0 and the development there, because previously, you know, you'd submit your data, your report would be produced, it'd end up in your inbox, and then that's, you know, if you lose that link or you don't save the report, then, you know, you kind of have to try and chase it down. Moving forward, it's been proposed that actually clubs will have a portal that they can log into, and, you know, you've got a PitchPower account which is linked to the club. You know, it makes sense to me to put 2 and 2 together and be able to access your previous reports there, you know, so you can kind of trace your standard, and hopefully it's going from you know, basic to good, and if not, from good to advanced. So yeah, it's all work in process, and even when, you know, PitchPower 2.0 is launched, that won't be the end of the development. It's a case of all the feedback that you've provided is brilliant, and even stuff on, you know, the battery life. What we've done previously is, you know, clubs, not so much in Oxfordshire, but clubs, you know, north or kind of in deepest, darkest Cornwall, they've got no 4G or 3G alone signal on the pitch. So it's a case of trying to, you know, even things like put an offline mode in, and, you know, to save, you know, getting home and making a brew and kind of going through your camera roll and looking at, well, I can't remember, was that Goalmouth 1 or was that, you know, pitch 3 or, you know, whatever. So it's all good. But I mean, if you are struggling with a battery life, there are ways around it, in terms of you can kind of, it'll probably be the upload, because uploading photos does, I guess, use a lot of data and battery. You can save them to your camera roll as long as you have them labeled and you know what's where, and upload when you get home. Or, I mean, I'll take it back. When I've been doing inspections, I've, you know, got a battery pack that I use from Amazon, because if I'm setting off to do inspections around London, then it's essential that I keep my phone charged, and I got a £20 battery pack that I sling in my rucksack I got from Amazon, and charge it when I'm on the tube or the train from visit to visit. So yeah, I mean, maybe that's a little bit of a tip there, or I don't really know about the battery, but I think there's probably that they're looking at all aspects of it.
I think one of the other things is as we're moving forward is doing a lot more with the data. That's something that the counties have asked for and being used in Power BI, and sort of almost extracting the information from the reports and then allowing sort of counties to then track that data, so we can go site by site, PitchPower assessment by PitchPower assessment, and build a real picture up of each particular site and the work that's gone on there. And that's obviously something that we'd be very keen to share with you guys when we get it up and going as well.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you cannot underestimate how important that data will be moving forward, regionally as well as nationally, to find out patterns, where is the drop off in quality. I have friends kind of obviously colleagues up in the north of the country, and their differences of pitch standards now compared to what we've got down here in what is really the fair south, and as well as kind of rainfall differences from east coast to west coast. It's all super important. And as well as that, you kind of look at disease outbreaks or pest infestation. It's you can't underestimate how important the data is going to be. And the thing is as well, this is led by the foundation, whereby if there are patterns emerging and issues that we're facing nationally or regionally, then moving forward measures can be put in place in terms of funding or the workshops similar to this in terms of topics if we're seeing trends. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right in terms of the other reason is kind of to have a map date, like a national database of what pitches are where, what standard are they, and kind of is the program improving pitches. And I think the resounding answer is yes currently, and I think it's only going to get greater, and the reach is going to become even wider. Anything else, Andrew? We'll move on with Phil shortly.
No, that's it. Yeah, move on.
Brilliant. Okay, Phil. Cutting pitches. We've talked about what James has experienced in terms of not being able to control the cut frequency and the cut height of the playing surface. I mean, as well as we just talked about not underestimating something. The kind of looking back, everyone would think, he's the groundsman, he cuts the grass. Grass cutting is so important, and kind of the different tips and tricks that you can kind of do in terms of if you're able to rotate your cut direction, if you're able to kind of clear the dew before cutting, if you are able to raise the height of cut by just a few mil, it all adds to it all can add to kind of like holistically the quality of the pitch. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, like massively. I think the thing I see, the disappointing thing I see the most when it comes to cutting is, from what I tend to do for a lot of clubs, and you go and do a lot of hard work, it can be eradicated if you cut badly. And that goes back to some of the service, level agreements and bits and bobs that James was talking about that he's had to look into. But cutting is important. I've definitely noticed with the advent over the past 2 or 3 years with carbendazim coming off for worms, that's been a major issue with kind of what cutting also gives you. Is there are a lot of bumpy pitches out there that are sort of like, because the worm casting is getting better, there's no controls on them, but then if they're not being cut particularly well and the mud comes in, smears the grass, there's lots of different things, you know, that we've got to look out for in the cutting. But the things that you've got mentioned there, like probably the only thing I would turn around and say to add to what you've got on that slide is the old 30% rule. And going back to James as well, you know, if they're cutting at 15 mil and haven't cut for 6 months, or 6 months, sorry, 6 weeks or
Yeah.
5-6 weeks, you know, all of a sudden they're going to hack away 15 mil. Like, let's be realistic, they're at least taking 50% of the leaf tissue off in that cutting process on that day, which ain't great for the plant. It's going to put it under stress. It's going to take a while to recover. And on grassroots pitches where budgets are at a premium, you know, we haven't got the ability to go and get a foliar feed out there and put some carbohydrate into the plant to try and get it to kick on. You know, Dan, you worked yourself at a decent level. You know, the amount of money and stuff that you get spent on those hybrid pitches. You know, when you're in trouble, you can kind of get your way out of it.
Yeah.
With grassroots, it's difficult to do that. So you've got to be on the money when cutting is being done. More importantly, now when growth rates are slowing than during the summer or during the summertime. You know, at the minute we're going to start dumbing down. The plant's going to start reaching dormancy, and if you make a mistake, to be honest with you, you're probably not going to get it back.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that completely. And I think as well, you know, if you are cutting at a decent frequency and you're not leaving clippings everywhere, you know, you are cutting it. You won't hope. I mean, at this level, I just think, you know, grassroots community sport. You know, I don't name brands or anything, but that equipment that you've got on the back of the tractor is brilliant if you're cutting, because, you know, there's not the great need to cut with a cylinder mower to get a real sharp finish, especially not now through the winter, because it's going to cost you, you know, if you're fourfold in service and maintenance with your rotary, you kind of helping to stand the grass up as well with the suction, and then you kind of, if you are cutting a decent frequency and letting it fly, you are putting back into the soil as well, so you're kind of got that regeneration, you know, going on. Yeah. As long as you're cutting at a decent frequency and not leaving clippings on top, and that is important. Of the golden rule of never remove a third. It's always, you know, I'm like a broken record sometimes in the kind of the bits of advice. It is just little and often, and knowing when to kind of get on it and when to not get on it. And as we do approach dormancy, and as you touched on before, James, when you get the tractor, and the kind of, you know, the desire is to go out and kind of think, oh, okay, I'll cut it, I'll stripe it up. You know, you just have to ask, why am I doing this? What am I going to get out of it? And is it the right thing to do at the moment? I touched on cutting first because it is kind of, you know, the most frequent, and it's not to be understated, its importance, and kind of, you know, the best practice that we've just spoken about does get you a lot for free, because you're going to be cutting anyway, and it's just a case of, you know, doing these little things right. A lot of the times the larger stuff falls into place. Anything to add before we move on? Go on, Phil.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, one of the biggest things is sort of like looking after, you know, if you have your own in-house machinery, you know, look after it. And like, we're not in the business of promoting a particular mower, so I'll keep my mouth shut. But the one on the back of that tractor, the running cost of it is belts and blades. You know, we're talking like £4 a blade for that on the back. So as long as you can keep them sharp, like, you'll get through a season fine. Just renew the blades at the end of the year. Yeah. You know, it takes 2 seconds to sling them off on that. The belts, it's no maintenance. You start going down cylinder routes, you know, cylinder mowers, you know, you're asking for a whole load of trouble, bearings, regrinding annually. And to be quite honest with you, when you get into the mucky time of the year anyway, the quality of cut probably isn't quite there for you, because you probably need the rotary roller mower sort of like bed everything down a little bit. The cylinder mower can be a right pain this time of the year. So yeah, that's all it's just make sure that you keep, if you are lucky enough to have a piece of equipment like that, just keep on it.
Yeah, no, I remember cutting with the cylinder mower in the school, and kind of end of every run you're having to scrape the worm cast off the front of it in the winter, and it is messy. Rotary mowers are for the win in winter sports situations. Right, next slide, we'll move on to kind of equal importance in the playing season as we get to the the nitty-gritty of it. We've already touched on it before, and we spoke about James getting his tractor, and the next kind of thing is getting a slitter. What do you reckon at the moment, Phil? Are we approaching the kind of end of the opportunity to do decompaction before the winter, and then it's a case of we're looking to the spring? You still got away.
You could probably look, just because we're a little bit drier this year than what we have been definitely over the last 3 or 4 years. You could probably, you're just on the limit if you wanted to go sort of like do some deep tine aeration. I've gone around quite a few of the clubs that I've done in Oxfordshire. One thing I have noticed is a lot of people, like, I know we talk about deep tine aeration, but there's some grounds that literally they might have 5-6 inches worth of root zone over a bit of landfill, some of these sites. So you really want to just get that top, if you can get that top bit working for you. And the other thing that with the deep tine aeration, it does sort of like, it's important to get the roots chasing down the profile, but remember, like, mass is as important as depth of root. If you've got a root on a plant that is very dense and it's thick going laterally out, not just deep, that really helps with your stability on a pitch. And generally, because we're quite heavy soils, it's easy normally, to be honest with you, the right sort of nutrition, you can actually get quite thick roots on heavier soils. It's the complete opposite of being on a stadium pitch or a sand pitch, where rooting becomes very difficult. With the majority of the pitches that we're dealing with at the minute, you can get good rooting. So deep tine aeration, massive, it improves pitches so badly, but you just be aware of what you actually have on your site, because there's no point draining to 10 inches if you can't get there, I suppose, and you just end up, for me as a contractor, it knackers me machine. But the profile you've got, you just want it to work for you rather than going against it. So yeah, at the minute you're probably lastminute.com for this year, and then probably get back on, if it depends on the weather. I think the seasons are so messed up now that you just have to take each month as it comes and kind of make a bit of an educated assumption as to where you're at, because I overseeded a site in Henley last year in December, and got an unbelievable take with seeding.
Yeah.
December, everyone else would say, "Oh, what a waste of money." It transformed their pitch.
Yeah.
But it's just, you go with the seasons, don't you? And you have to see what's in front of you.
Yeah. No, you're right on that, and it's kind of as we've alluded to, it's been quite kind, so far, in terms of the temps that we've been having. But like you kind of touched on there, with the deep tine decompaction, you really want the soil to kind of fracture up as you heave it. The danger with that is kind of doing it too close to the weather turning, and you kind of get into the low temperatures and the frost, and then you really do shock the roots, and then the grass plant stunted as well. But as you kind of touched on, moving forward, it is kind of working with what you've got, and almost that top layer, being able to pick your opportunities and your windows to open that back up, through the rest of the playing season without causing too much disruption. That's your little wins there, because you've kind of done your hard work, hopefully, and kind of decompacted at the right time. It's just a case of opening that top layer back up that gets capped off with machinery use on it and play.
Yeah, well, we're with James there, that's the beauty. We aerated to as deep as we could get on his site, and he's now going to have that slitter.
Yeah.
So that slitter will sort of complement what we've done already, but he's able to think like he's obviously in a fortunate position that he's got that machinery. Not everyone does, but for that particular situation, it works well. Deep tine aeration, he can come in and do that 5 to 6 inch sort of area with those with the slitter that he's got.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right there. Moving on, seeding. You just said there you can kind of you seeded a pitch last year in December, and you kind of still got the take. You know, it is a case of you will get ryegrass germinate at low temperatures, but as you said, it's kind of a tough call to have a pitch overseeded in winter. But we really do kind of look towards the making hand repairs, and it's a case of, you know, as your goal mouths and your centre circles do begin to start to show wear, you can still get seed coming through there. So there's kind of, you know, don't rest on your kind of and your laurels and look and think at the damage that's been done. It's a case of be proactive with it, and a little bit of dressing and a little bit of seed at this time of year to keep it kind of coming through can take you a long way through the winter. Do you agree with that, Phil?
Yeah, no, you know, definitely a bit of seed, like as long as we're not, I think David's online from Banbury, and like he's been getting a fair decent go at the minute, you know, just with doing some hand seeding, putting some sort of like more soil stuff in with it, a bit more composty, like just to try and hold on to nutrient. You can get stuff to grow, I think, without complicating it and making it too difficult. There's also, you know, there are different types of seed, different types of ryegrass that I mentioned about doing in December. You know, don't want to go all techie and that, but I use tetraploids to overseed in December because they are a species of the ryegrass that are more, you know, able to, you know, they're more able to germinate at low temperatures. So the other thing I would say, a bit of advice, if guys are sort of buying their seed separately and not necessarily taking the advice off of their contractor or whatever, make sure they're using the right seed at the right time, you know, because I do think if you're going to, that tetraploid grasses, they are brilliant for overwinter overseeding. Yeah. So it, you know, it makes a massive difference compared to some of the diploid rye that you try and overseed with, and the take isn't quite the same. Having that tetraploid in there is quite important. I feel it definitely helps me. I use it all the winter overseeding, and it does do a good job. So, but little bits as well, your goal mouths, your corners, flags, you know, anything, centre circle, you know, if you get opportunity, got a couple of bags left over from anything you've done renovation wise, you know, just even if it's a matter of a handful out there, something's better than nothing.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. And realistically, you know, if you can do it now, the coverage that you do sustain will act as a canopy for your juvenile grass growing. If you're threadbare, you know, you're going to get it kicked out, whatever you try and do, unless you kind of take people off it and sheet it and let it rejuvenate, you know, bring it back up that way. But, you know, that's near on impossible if you don't have the luxury of a few pitches to rotate and kind of like, you know, space them out. But if you have got good coverage at the moment, you know, be mindful that it will decrease over winter. So keep it topped up, keep putting, you know, if you do have the means to, and even, I mean, you know, even if you do have a pedestrian fert spreader and kind of put a little bit down your kind of wear diamond or your center before a game, you know, to get it played in like that. You know, that's something to do. But goal mouths essentially, because they're the first to go. You know, if you begin to lose cover, it's really difficult to bring it back the further you go with it. So yeah, I mean, like we just touched on it, goal mouths, you know, this probably doesn't look dissimilar to what you saw last year, James, in terms of, you know, if you are sitting a foot further down and you got no grass, you know, growing there, you're going to really struggle to grow when it's underwater as well. The bottom photo, that's obviously been, you know, extensively returfed, you know, and you can do that if you can, you know, if you want to take a square meter from you know, outside of your pitch and kind of resod it into your goal mouth, by all means do that. But make sure, a couple of tips on it, just make sure you take something that's deep. You don't just want to be taking the top 3 inches of it. You want at least kind of as deep as you could go, really. I mean, the only limitation is can you carry it? But make sure you dig out, and it's also kind of like sat level, if not very slightly proud. But yeah, ahead of games, kind of getting some grass seed down, and especially after games, kind of getting some seed into it and a little bit of dressing. And if you do have the luxury of being able to kind of put your scaffold netting or germ sheeting over it to kind of bring it on and allow it to recover, just be mindful of not leaving that germ sheet or scaffolding net. I mean, scaffolding netting's not too bad, but be mindful if you've got germination sheeting and leaving it down too long, because it does get warm and wet under there and it is prone to disease, and then you have something else on your hand. But yeah, localizer repairs are super important and shouldn't be neglected. If you can get them on your pitch following a game with a divoting fork, you know, for half an hour, you'll notice the difference if you kind of add those up over the season, whereas not doing it. Anything to add on that, Phil? What'd you say?
Yeah, no. Yeah, like, to be honest with you, those localised repairs are important. You know, I'm laughing looking at that picture. You'd be going mental if you were in that, wouldn't you? Like, it just, yeah, it's just, you just little and often do what you can. I think the other key thing is, what I would say to guys is, when doing localised repairs, like, you've got light top dressing, use suitable materials, but do try and have a little bit of organic in it, whether that happens to be a little bit of composted. I know I've got to be careful that you don't recommend that to sports pitches, but ultimately something that will hold on to a bit of moisture and nutrient to help that seed germinate as quickly as possible, because you don't have the time and you don't have irrigation. You know, generally people don't have any irrigation on grassroots pitches, so you know, I would always stay away from 100% sand for sure. Try and get some a 70-30 if you're doing those type of areas. And if you are lucky enough to have a few quid lying around, and you can, you know, I see the turfing that's done there at this time of the year, that's probably your best way of eradicating the picture above it quickly, you know. But you've got to be able to have the ability to move it, you know, move pitches and move areas which not everyone has. So, but yeah, it's just, and the other thing is, do feed it. You know, if you're going to try and grow grass from seed, a little bit of fert on there as well. It needs to kick it to get it going. It's just as important sometimes as the seed itself.
Yeah, no, with you on that.
Questions, guys, about coverage. So in the summer, how long should you leave coverage down? How long's too long? Left hours for close to 2 weeks fully watered. Does this affect the root growth?
What was the first question, Andy?
In the summer, how long should you leave ground covered?
Leave ground covered? I'm not sure I understand there.
Well,
sorry,
how long
previously you were talking about covering with grow sheets.
Oh, okay.
Not too long.
Yeah, I mean, really, you want to, if you're putting sheets down in the summer, I'm assuming it's just a case of bringing, you know, this is following your reno just to bring stuff on a little bit. You really want to be checking under kind of every 2 to 3 days, and when it's nice and green and you see a good green haze under there, whip the sheet off, and kind of, as it gets up to kind of maybe 50-60 mil, give it your first cut with a rotary mower. If you have got a walk behind rotary mower, get on it with that. What you'll do then is it encourages the kind of grass plant to tiller out and say, well, actually, you know, that's my limit on where I'm growing. You gradually reduce it down to kind of a decent height, you know, what you want it at. Maybe, like, you know, initially kind of cut it, just top it off. Next time, drop it down 5-10 mil, top it off again, down to about maybe, I don't know, 30-35 mil, and just keep on it. And that'll encourage it when it's young to tiller out. But certainly you don't want to be leaving the covers down for a week and walking away and coming back and looking what's underneath, because it's something you really do need to kind of keep an eye on, because especially in the summer, when you've got kind of juvenile grass, and there's probably had a feed down as well, nitrogen's high, you are kind of open to disease attacks underneath that netting, and it's really kind of, you do want to provide it the conditions, the humidity and the warmth initially to establish quicker, but as soon as it is established, or at a stage where you can get on it and you think it's safe to take it off, every kind of 2 to 3 days you want to be, even I'd probably say firm at every couple of days having a look under, in the summer, that is.
And to follow up question from Easington, so they had 35 tonnes of a soil sand 70-30 mix this year, very good coverage of overseeding using a seed drill, had problems with weed growth, and so it tended to break up like golf divots. Any tips to avoid that?
The dressing, I think if you're dressing the pitch, it's really important to work it into the profile. It's not a case of lumping it on. It's a case of brushing it into the soil profile, and if you have aerated beforehand, to kind of get a brush on it and work it into the profile, that's what you want. You don't really want to be kind of top dressing year on year with a proportion of sand and then just having it sit on top, because you will just raise the height of your pitch, and you just cap, you'll have instability in the top level. You really want to kind of, there's many reasons for top dressings, but it's to kind of improve and add to your profile.
Dan, just to thingy, I'll just read in that chat there, and it's saying a problem with the grass growth. I don't know if I'm completely wrong here, but that sounds to me like it might have been just a touch dry.
With the grass growth?
I'm just reading the chat here. It said 35 tonnes of 70-30, very good coverage. So a good overseed was done, and then it said we had problems with grass growth, so it tended to break up like golf divots.
Okay. Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, it was probably a bit dry. They done 2 or 3 passes with a disc seeder. That's what it sounds to me like, but I could be completely wrong. So my only, because it says for any tips, just don't disc seed in the middle of summer. I know it sounds very easy to say that because timing is what it is, but sometimes you'd be better off fertilising and then coming in and doing your overseeding later when there's a bit more chance of more moisture about. That for my 2 pennies worth.
No, you're absolutely right, and we see it, these clubs kind of end of season, the renovation drags on, they're not able to book a contractor end of season. It kind of gets to mid-May, it's blazing hot, we haven't had rain for however long, and then it really does spell trouble. It's almost a case of now, given these clubs that don't have access to irrigation, that aren't able to provide, that's your investment. You need to kind of ensure that the seed doesn't go to waste in terms of it germinates, it'll kind of bolt, and then it gets no rainfall, so you are in trouble. So Phil, you're absolutely right in terms of doing it earlier in the spring or even later in the season, kind of like mid to late September, October, where the rainfall is around. Yes, play has begun again, but you kind of have to offset that with the risk that you run in the summer with them getting hotter now and kind of not being able to supply water to kind of sustain the grass. You're absolutely right with that.
Well, it just to sort of add to that is, look, at the end of the day, one of the biggest investments that I'm ever going to do as a contractor for a grassroots club is put seed in the ground. And if you're going to do not, I noticed this year, one of the clubs I did last year, and yes, it went dry this summer, right? But all the overseeding that we did late autumn, even though it went dry, we still had that canopy of grass through the summer. Yes, it was under drought stress, but the density was there. So when the rain did come good this autumn, just come, actually, it's bounced back unbelievably well. So you've got to be unlucky to lose coverage in its entirety. So because it's such a big investment, you know, seed this year is going to go up another £10 a bag. They're looking at, like, fertilizers are going to go up 20-30%. It is more important now than ever that when you do put seed in the ground, it's the right time.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's such a big investment for these guys.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then we talked about the kind of holistic approach to everything that we do, and kind of then, you know, during the summer when you do get those dry spells, you know, what height are you cutting the grass at? Does the grass need cutting at all? Can we get away with kind of, you know, we know the warm weather's coming. Can we kind of increase the, you know, the height of cut so the grass plant can sustain it, the roots can develop deeper to access more water in the ground, you know, and then you have got, it's not one thing, you know, this is where we kind of get on this journey, and there are people out there to kind of, you know, point you in the right directions to these things and kind of open your eyes to the little things that you can do that make a big difference in, you know, in the long run. Is that all on the questions, Andy, before we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, I think they're there.
Cool. Okay. Good surface hygiene. Grass leaves do die off on a regular basis, and these build up at the base of the plant. You do kind of naturally get a thatch layer if it's just left. So kind of turf grooming, the tool that's on there, multi-groomer, is a brilliant piece of kit. We kind of sway away from recommending that the rollers down, but it does serve a purpose in terms of, you know, a bit of a smoothing, flattening roller. On there, you know, grass hygiene within the grass sward is really important. On this one, you've got the star slitter at the front, as Phil spoke about earlier, the kind of half moon that opens up the surface. You've got a rake to clear, you know, to brush everything and stand everything up, as well as kind of, you know, loosen that thatch layer to some extent. And then the brush at the back. It's one of the best tools that you can kind of get if you do have a compact tractor and your kind of ambition, you know, is to get a compact tractor, begin cutting your pitches in-house with a rotary mower. This is almost, you know, if not a deeper slitter, this is almost next on your shopping list, because they're brilliant bits of kit. Phil, your experience with these, or anything to add on them? Turf grooming?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, one of my last places I worked as a groundsman, that was I bought one of them. So all I'll say is that particular bit of kit is heavy. So just make sure, if that is something that you go in for on any grants or anything, is that you got the tractor to deal with it, because it is quite heavy. Yeah. Especially the quad. Like, to reiterate what you're saying, just on the surface hygiene in itself, the science of it, if you return clippings, which basically everybody at amateur level does do, you're looking at roughly 8 tons per annum of, like, organic matter accumulating over a hectare. So over the size of your football pitch, you're looking at returning almost roughly around 8 tons. If you don't try and keep on top of that, that's how your thatch ends up building up. That's when earlier, when you had the core with the bit of thatch layer at the top, that's what then stops your moisture getting through. It causes stunted root growth, poorly, like, just so many different things. So surface hygiene for me is a massive part of, but even if it's as simple as running a rake through, you know, and you only have the money for a rake, you know, just keeping that surface clean, because the amount, like with a ryegrass plant, there is always one leaf dying. So you need to try and, if you can, get into it and hoover it up. Some people are lucky enough, if you could run a rake type thing, and some people have, like, the ride-on collects, put a rake through and get a ride-on collect over there to try and keep the sward as clean as possible. But if you do just continually cut and return clippings, like a lot of people say, oh, it's a good way of fertility being put back into the soil, which it is, you know, that's not wrong, but at the cost of potentially creating a thatch layer. So them bits of kit, like, there's so many different, you know, brands and types of rake, brush and everything, but yeah, if you can, even just a simple rake at its barest minimum would always do you a turn.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And the brush isn't to be understated as well. Even if you can't cut during the winter, you know, the grass doesn't need a cut. It will respond well to brushing because you clear the dew, you move in air around the kind of base of the sward. But it's all beneficial to kind of reduce disease pressures, and as well as if you can't get on and cut it, and the desire is there to kind of have a nice striping for a game, you will get that effect. But yeah, I mean, aesthetics, you know, aren't to be understated, but the real reason behind brushing is to kind of clear that dew and stand everything back up and get some air moving around the sward, and to keep everything healthy and in check. Turf nutrition. Phil, do you reckon, I mean, we're approaching mid-November, hopefully by now people will have a kind of a controlled release autumn winter in there to sustain the recovery of the pitch and kind of keep nutrient levels where they need to be, not just for grass growth. That's what, you know, by the by really, but I mean it's a case of you don't want to be forcing grass growth on through winter, so you know you don't want to be putting a high nitrogen feed down at the moment. It's more about kind of building the plant up, toughening it up and hardening it up for winter to sustain the cold period and the wear that it's exposed to. I mean, you know more. I said in the email to you earlier, you've probably forgotten more than I know about kind of the ins and outs of turf.
Oh, don't. Yeah, like if anyone can be bothered to listen to me for 3 hours, I could go through it, but I wouldn't do that. But nutrition for me is probably, as much as I do a lot of cultural stuff with the machines and stuff to the plant, nutrition's probably as important and getting it right. Rates are important, what's actually in the bag, just because you get an analysis that says 10, 0, 10, the makeup of that nutrient. So it's like your ingredient list is just as important, because the plant takes up different forms of nitrogen at different times of the year. Like, not to bore people, but just literally very quickly, all I would say is in cold weather, if you're able to, try and stay away as best as you can from urea. Urea is predominantly in the majority of most or of a lot of fertilizers, but try and get something that would be split, like urea and ammonium sulfate or ammonium nitrate, if you can. You're right, this time of the year we very much go down the route of trying to harden in the plant up. You know, putting something, iron's a good way of doing that, and putting a granular fertilizer down with a bit of iron in it. But ultimately, I'm a bit more of a magnesium fan. You can get some good products nowadays that have quite heavily loaded with magnesium, and magnesium's quite a key thing that you can use to actually fight off any disease. Not that that's a massive thing when you're at 25 mil on turf pitches, but you know, magnesium gives you a fantastic colour for this time of year. So yeah, like I just think that turf nutrition on grassroots pitches is a massive thing. It can hide a multitude of sins if done properly and at the right time. So yeah, I don't want to bore everyone because I'll go on about it for ages, but it is so important. I sometimes think that, you know, if the nutrition in certain places, like James was saying about Goring, the council were down for applying fertilizer, doing aeration, and potentially they don't want to do it on that level, because if they get more grass growth, it makes the cutting a bit more of an issue. And that is the one thing I will say: if you get your nutrition right, it turns your pitch, or can turn your pitch, into a bit of an animal that you might not be, you know, sort of like ready for, in the sense of the maintenance side of it. Because if you start feeding properly, then you start the clipping yields go up, and you know, but that is ultimately how you get a good pitch. Yeah, you know, getting the nutrition right. It's a massive thing. I can't understate it, to be honest.
Yeah. No, in terms of getting the feeding right, we've got the point at the bottom, soil analysis. Is that something you'd recommend? I mean, you know, do you really need to kind of get in and know what the deficiencies are within the soil?
Don't get me wrong. It's just it's a snapshot.
Yeah.
The thing that I worry about with soil analysis is obviously it doesn't measure N. To measure N, you end up doing your tissue analysis. So you're measuring phosphate, potassium, and all the other ones. A lot of people, then the big problem is, the big thing that comes up is like the pH and all the other, and the CEC soil, that sort of stuff. To be honest with you, it's a snapshot. It's the sort of thing I would say get it done once every 3 years, to be honest, because it's probably not going to change, especially you're not putting enough inputs in on grassroots pitches to really buffer the soil that much anyway. And just be mindful that if guys come across guys that work for companies and that, and they say, oh, your pH is high, you need to go and put a bundle of calcium sulfate down to try and lower, or gypsum, just be mindful of it, because it's very difficult to, so if your pH comes through high on a soil analysis, you'll be sitting, I need to get my pH down into the range, sort of like 5.5, 6.5, 6, into that range. A very clever man that I studied under at uni, like turf grass man, once said to me, he said, the pH of your soil is the pH of your soil, deal with what you got.
Yeah.
And that is probably the biggest consideration. Your pH of the soil is what it is. And I think there's, you must remember, Dan, there's the old nutrient diagram of availability of nutrient at a given pH.
Yeah.
So maybe that as a reference point isn't a bad one, because it literally tells you that 30% of the N that your nitrogen you're putting on isn't actually going into the plant. It can't be converted. It gets locked up in the soil.
It can be,
that's not a bad guide. If you use your soil analysis and use it in the right way, it gives you a good guide. It may mean that you have to overcompensate and maybe go a little bit heavier on the rate to get what you want. At the same token, you might be able to drop it a little bit. But the soil analysis, get it done every 2 to 3 years. I would say is a fair shout, but just not take it with a pinch. Just use it as a guide. It's not the Bible type thing,
No, good on you. I think we all appreciate the honest answers and everything. Speaking candidly on here, because we are here to support clubs, and it's a case of you can get blinded. So just to wrap things up, then, best practice. So focus on grass cutting height, frequency, and the conditions that you're cutting in. Brushing, if you do have the ability to get on and brush the pitch, it clears the dew, prints a pattern, stands everything back up, and allows airflow around the sward. Post-match repairs and divot mix, again, we've spoke about it, essential. And like you said, we looked at the the sunken goal mouth there. You're absolutely right. And if you were to kind of fill that with sand and chuck the seed on, there's one thing that's going to happen there, is it's just going to get kicked out. So do a little bit of research yourself in terms of the mixes and materials that are available. And I've known clubs kind of put 50-50 mix sand soil into goal mouth, because it does have that retention capabilities and binding capacity. Where possible during the winter, avoid the heavy use of machinery and equipment on the pitch, especially in the wet. If you do kind of it's a hard workout. You wouldn't need a gym membership, but if you do have people that are willing to dew brush the pitch or drag brush the pitch, it's ideal. But by all means, kind of be mindful of taking kind of heavy equipment on the pitch. Keep the surface open when you can. Identify suitable windows in the weather and the pitch conditions to slit or spike. And then Phil, I mean, you said it came out of your mouth earlier, and it's something that I often say as well, is knowing not when to do something is often more important than knowing when to do something. So kind of the temptation to get out there and get on the pitch because you feel like you should be doing something, you know, it can be dangerous at times, and put you on the back foot. But in summary, keep yourself updated with current guidelines and best practice. You know, that includes COVID as well. You know, fingers crossed we don't have a winter like we had before, but you know, just keep yourself updated, and kind of the Hive is a brilliant portal to be able to do that. Focus on the possible on your pitch, kind of, you know, keep your chins up to put it that way, and always ask, what am I trying to achieve by what I'm doing? You know, where's your next step? What kind of, you know, James and Phil speaking, it's a case of, why am I doing this? Reach out and talk to each other. You know, the Hive portal's there, and as I talked about earlier, we will kind of be launching the Oxfordshire or regional one. Plan ahead, you know, plan your next steps, but always keep an eye and be mindful of the weather and the pitch condition.